you're watching this video, chances are you've also felt that there is something deeply wrong with this world. You don't need me to prove Satan's little season. To you again with hundreds of documents, charts, or conspiracy theories. The people who came before have already done that. What keeps me wrestling now is no longer the question, is it real? But a much harder one. If it really is real, then how are we supposed to live? In this series, I'm not here to entertain you, nor to give you one more theory to cram into your head. My goal is simple and painful. To look straight at the reality of Satan's little season. To understand how it touches your money, your work, your family, your faith, your own life. And most importantly, to find a way to break out of the role of the system's obedient slave and return to living as a child of God. This is not an easy-to-listen-to series, but if you're tired of feeling like you're living in an invisible prison, then maybe it's time for us to have a real conversation. When reading the Bible, many people quietly think, if I had lived in the time of the apostles, it would probably have been easier to live righteously. Seeing the Lord perform miracles, hearing him preach directly, everything would be clearly black and white. In those days, the enemy showed its face. Rome was Rome, soldiers were soldiers. The persecutors were people you could see with your own eyes. If you followed the Lord, you knew very clearly which side you were on, and you also knew very clearly who was against you. What about now? Today, most evil doesn't wear combat boots, doesn't carry spears, doesn't declare, I am an enemy of God. It wears a suit and tie, gives you a monthly paycheck, loans you money to buy a house, hands you a modern education diploma, gifts you a smartphone and calls it progress, freedom, human rights, development. In the time of the disciples, to deny the Lord, you had to open your mouth and deny him. But today, you can deny him your whole life without ever saying a word. You just have to live exactly according to the schedule the system has laid out. Study, debt, work, spend, entertain yourself, burn out, then die. That's why I believe that in this age, spiritually speaking, it is harder to live righteously than it was in Bible times. Not because the Lord is more absent, but because Satan is more subtle. He doesn't tell you, turn your back on God. He just whispers, just live like everyone else. Don't ask questions. Everything is fine. We grew up inside a story repeated so many times it became obvious truth. In the old days, people were poor, backward, in the dark. Now is the golden age. Technology, healthcare, education, freedom. Modern life is so much better. Sounds about right. We have electricity, the internet, airplanes, medicine, fast food, shopping malls, social media. But pause for a moment and ask honestly, better for who? And better in what way? If the world is better, then why? Can a young person work their whole life and still not afford a decent home? Does a middle-class family live in constant fear of losing their job, going bankrupt, getting sick? Are people more connected than ever, yet lonelier, more depressed and more anxious than ever? They tell us we've been freed from hard labor, yet our bodies are weaker, dependent on pills, on caffeine, on sugar, on convenient foods that slowly destroy our health. They tell us we have freedom of choice, but most people are just chasing a few prepackaged options suggested by ads, algorithms, and the fear of being left behind. The modern world definitely has more of everything. More screens, more products, more information. But more doesn't mean better. Sometimes it only means more chains, just wrapped in shiny gift paper. The most dangerous lie isn't life is getting worse, but life is getting better every day. Don't question it. Just keep working, consuming, updating, upgrading. You're living in the brightest age of humanity. In Satan's little season, the illusion of progress is one of the most beautiful masks he wears to cover up the rot underneath. If you ask an ordinary person, are you free? They'll almost certainly answer, of course. I'm not in chains or anything. But that's exactly the problem. Slaves today don't need shackles or bars. They just need contracts, bank accounts, and a few numbers on a screen. From the moment you let out your first cry, your name has already been entered into the system. Birth certificate, ID number, household registration, tax code. You step into life not as a free soul, but as a neatly registered asset. As you grow up, you're taught to study hard, so that later you'll have a stable job. Translation: become an obedient cog in the machine. Then you start working, you get your paycheck. You're happy to have money, but you never really sit down to calculate how many percent of it disappears before it ever truly reaches your hands. Income tax, sales tax, property tax, insurance, this fee, that fee. You think you're earning one, but in reality you're only keeping a small fraction. The rest flows off somewhere far away, where you're not allowed to ask questions. You want a house? Take out a 20-30-year mortgage. You want a car? Pay in installments. You want a college degree? Take out student loans. Every time you sign your name on a contract, another loop of the rope tightens a little more around your neck. In the old days, slaves knew they were slaves. They saw the master, they saw the whip. Today, many people scoff at the word slave, while their entire lives are controlled by work schedules, interest rates, bills, and tiny clauses in fine print. We are not chained to a post. We are chained to fear. Fear of losing our job, fear of losing our home, fear of falling behind. And when fear is the shackle, you don't need iron chains. You just need a system clever enough to make you willingly put them on every morning. If you wanted to control a nation without firing a single bullet, what would you do? You would control what they learn and what heals or harms their bodies. In other words, education and healthcare. More than a century ago, the wealthiest tycoons on the planet, the names tied to oil and banking, understood this very well. They began pouring money into universities, hospitals, research institutes. On the surface, it looked like charity, scientific development, for public health. But when you're the one funding the entire system, you're also the one who decides what the curriculum teaches and what doctors are allowed to believe. Education gradually stopped teaching people how to think and started teaching them how to repeat. Students sit in rows, listen to the bell to start class, the bell to go to recess, like a soft version of a factory. After 12-16 years, most step into life with just enough knowledge to operate machines, type reports, follow procedures, but not enough to ask, why is the world designed this way? Meanwhile, healthcare has been redefined, from caring for the body as a whole to selling one pill for each symptom. Headache? Take a pill. Exhausted? Take a pill. Can't sleep? Take a pill. Few people ask, why is the body screaming like this? A healthcare system like that doesn't need you to be healthy, it needs you to be dependent. And when the people who teach you from childhood and the people who heal you when you grow up are all drinking from the same tycoon-funded source, do you think you're receiving the truth? Or just a carefully edited version of reality crafted to serve Satan's little season? Plato once told a story about people chained inside a cave. All their lives they only saw shadows on the wall, cast by a fire behind them. To them, those shadows were the world, until one person was unchained, stepped outside, saw the sun, saw real colors, and realized his whole life he had only been looking at a distorted copy of reality. Back then, that image felt like some distant philosophical metaphor. But now, you and I are living inside an HD version of the cave, the screen. Think about it. Most of what you know about the world, war, politics, economics, how the rich live, where the earth is in the universe, have you experienced it yourself? Or have you only seen it through TV, YouTube, movies, news, social media? Every day we spend hours staring into a glowing piece of glass. The images inside are selected, staged, edited, cut, color graded. Other people decide what you should be afraid of, what you should laugh at, what topics you should argue about, who you should idolize, who you should hate. And then, without any physical prison at all, your mind is locked inside a simulated universe. The Bible calls Satan the father of lies. If he lives in the age of screens, what do you think he would do? He wouldn't need to stand on a pulpit anymore. He would just need a team of editors, directors, data engineers, advertisers, influencers. People who believe they're just making content, while in reality they're painting new layers of shadows on the cave wall. The question isn't, are screens bad? The question is, what percentage of your spiritual life, emotions, and perception is being shaped by shadows, instead of by the true light? If you look at the world as a giant machine, you'll see it standing on a few main pillars. Break one pillar and the whole system shakes. And if I were Satan, I wouldn't waste time deceiving individuals one by one. I would seize at it. The pillars, and then let each person be affected naturally. Look closely, and you'll see his little season revolves around at least 5 arms of power. First, media and entertainment. This is the department that tells stories for humanity. Movies, music, shows, news, vlogs. Decide what is normal, what is cool, what is shameful. If you control people's dreams and fears, you don't need to chain their feet. Second, education. The place stamped as official knowledge. Once the curriculum is designed to remove God, distort history, and hide the important questions, every new generation is born pre-installed with an operating system that's convenient for the system. Third, government and law. Law no longer reflects truth, but reflects the interests of those holding the reins. Whatever they want, legal becomes legal. Whatever they want to crush is labeled a crime. Fourth, healthcare. If your body is kept weak and dependent, you will have little strength left to resist anything, including sin. Fifth, finance. Money is the blood of the system. Whoever controls money, debt, and inflation gets to decide what kind of life you're allowed to live. When these 5 pillars all lean in the same direction, you understand why living righteously in this age feels like driving against traffic on a highway. And the next question is, what do we do when most stable jobs exist inside those very arms of power? If you've listened this far and inside you feel a little sting, a bit of discomfort, some anger, or simply that something is not right with this normal life, you're not alone. That feeling is the warning signal that your soul is still alive, still able to recognize that something is wrong with this picture. In this episode, we've only drawn the map of the world, the pillars of power, the invisible chains, the shadows on the cave wall. But the most important question still hasn't been answered. If everything is this contaminated, then how is an ordinary person like me supposed to live so I don't become a tool of Satan's system? In the next part, we'll dive into your own mindset, choices, work, and relationships, and start looking for a way out. If you want to keep going, watch episode 2. Don't click away and pretend you never heard any of this.